Good afternoon, this is Lynx. This video is about a subject that I have been resisting doing a video about because there's so much confusion surrounding the topic, so much misinformation out there about the subject, that it was a whole rat's nest that I thought would be better to avoid entirely. However, it is a subject that comes up with professional readers that professional readers have to deal with, and that people who are looking for readings should know a little something about. The subject is karma. When I was younger and first starting out in this business, my main concern was whether or not I could predict the future and be accurate. And after a while, I realized that perhaps that was the least important thing to be able to do when doing readings for people. It's helpful, and in a lot of cases people want the security of knowing what's coming, and that's a possibility, and it is something that you obviously can do when you know what you're doing. But I had a client once that changed my view on that. He came to me when I was working at a historical site, and he came in my tent and he said that there was a problem with he and his girlfriend. He was in tears over it, and after a very long session in which a whole lot of stuff came out about where their relationship was, I warned him that there was a possibility of him conceiving a child with her. In fact, it looked very much like that was going to be the outcome, and he said that was impossible because they weren't even intimate. And I said, it's going to take one time for this to happen. So if you don't want this to happen, be very careful and take precautions. And 2 years later, I got a phone call from him, and he said it happened pretty much as you said it would. It was one time, and we now have a child together. And that child was embroiled in a horrible custody battle, and everyone involved was miserable. And I thought there was a possibility to avoid all of this that everyone's going through right now had you considered the possibility that she would actually conceive. So I thought, how very sad. He's like, you were right. And I thought, well, how very sad that it was the way it happened, because you could have changed it. And he could have certainly ended up in a relationship that was more balanced, more supportive, and had a child in that environment. But alas, he did not. And so I thought, well, what an interesting situation to predict and be right and have these things happen, and people get in these situations that they would have preferred to have avoided, but they chose not to. So that said, karma comes into the picture because karma means habit. And in the old Tibetan teachings and the way that it was taught, your karma is your habit, your habitual patterns. It doesn't mean necessarily what goes around comes around. It doesn't mean that if you do something, it's got to happen to you again. If that were the case, the world would be a very different place right now. However, you are subject to your own habitual patterns. So the point of all of this is that his habitual patterns led him into a situation where he was in a very painful situation with relationships, and that had been his habits over and over and over again. And it had less to do with whether or not I could predict the future, and it had more to do with the person's habitual habits. So what happens is that people come to readers, and someone said this to me today, they expect the reader to have a magic wand and to fix everything, and that's not necessarily the case. So herein lies what differentiates a good reader from a reader who is kind of, it's whether or not you can actually come up with opportunities or ways for the person to avoid what's coming that might be unpleasant, and you can help shed light on their habitual patterns or their karma. If you just read the past, present, and future, you say this is what's coming, that's it, it's fixed. If you know what you're doing as a reader and you have some other skills besides just being able to read the past, present, and future, so to be able to sort of have a sense of how to sort of mitigate or change the direction those things are going in, then you actually can have a much greater impact on the client's life. On the other side of it, you cannot escape your own karma, your habitual patterns. In the end, you must face and take action on everything that you've created in your life. No one else can change that for you. I mean, in the old sense, a Buddha could, but unless you're with a Buddha, they can't really transmute your karma or change your karma. So, the idea is, in the end, you must face you. So whatever happens and whatever a reader puts out there and whatever a reader sees coming, you're the one that has to face it. Now, a good reader is the one who can go, okay, well, let's see here. I see that if you take this road, you get this outcome, okay? There's a great deal of uncertainty in this outcome if you take this. However, if you change your action and you go in another direction where you sort of show patience, then what happens is you can have a much more prosperous outcome. So if you go in and you jump in with your set of uncertainties and your impatience, and you let all of your fears and desires jump on top of you, well, then you create a great deal of uncertainty. However, if you're patient and focused, the outcome looks much better for you. So a reader who really knows what they're doing can give you the options, rather than says, this is the outcome that you're going to get. So the fact is that everybody has habitual patterns that have gotten them to where they are. That's karma. The reader who knows what they're doing can say, well, I've got a bag full of tricks to help you to negotiate this and go this way or that way. And in some cases, the deck is so stacked against the person who's getting the reading that there is nowhere that the reader can wave their magic wand to make it happen. If they're in a situation where they're doing the same thing over and over again and it is not where they belong, and it keeps creating the same problems for them, there's no amount of waving your arms and throwing cards down that's going to change it. You have to make the decision. So, to sum up all of this, the future is not fixed, and you guys have heard me say that before. The approach that you take determines your outcome. The reader who knows what he's doing can give someone a lot of options and a lot of directions so that they can make an informed choice and start to move in a new direction. Those of us who know how to do this can still tell you, hey, this is what's coming. And I have people all the time tell me, what's coming? And I go, well, this is what's coming. There's a wonderful line in Dune where she says to Muad'Dib, his lover says to him, don't you ever worry that just looking at the future changes it. And if you know a little bit about what's going on with quantum mechanics, you'll see that sometimes when we look at it, we change it. And I've said this before in other videos. And the good news is that if you see something coming that you want to change, there's ways to change it, providing that the reader who you're working with knows what they're doing enough to be able to help you. So, readers know this. It is not your job, and I've said this before, to wave your magic wand and make everything change. People who get readings know that no matter what the reader says, you're still the one that has to take actions. And everyone, our karma, our habits, are ours to deal with, and we're the only ones who can deal with them. No one else can. In the end, you have to face you. There's no way around it. You have to face yourself. You have to face what choices you've made. You have to face what you've done. I guess maybe that's the real idea of what goes around comes around. Because in the end, there's no escaping it. You have to face who you are. So, remember, a reader who knows what they're doing can say, hey, we're going to take another opportunity here, and we're going to look at what happens if you go down this road. If you go down this road, this can free up for you. If you avoid this, that frees up. If you take this opportunity, that's what happens. If you do nothing, this is your future. Like the young gentleman that I read, and I said, well, there's a child in your future. And he did nothing, and there was a child in his future. There's a little more to it than all of that, but that's the summation. That's the simplified version as best as I can. And I hope it makes some sense for you guys, and I hope it helps you, those of you who do readings, to give some permission to go, look, it's not my job to solve everyone's problems, and those who are getting readings to go, hey, it's not anyone else's problem, the job, thing to solve all my problems, job to solve all my problems, and that I made these. There's one other thing. A lot of times you'll get someone who's spent a lifetime of habits to get themselves in a tricky position, in a bad relationship, a bad situation, and then they want you to wait 5 minutes, they want it to be fixed. And I always say, well, how long did it take you to get here, and why do you expect that I can, or anyone can help you get out of it in 3 seconds or 3 minutes? There's a lot more to all of this than the books and then the popular psychic books have made it seem. You just call to your dead relatives and everything goes away. I usually say, how's that working for you? I'm Lucky Links, as always, wishing you success and good fortune in all that you do. If you want to schedule a reading, 779-302-8009 or conjurehope@gmail.com. And if you want to take a class on, I have an intermediate to advanced tarot class, I have a Lenormand class, and I have a playing card class. You can contact me and I'll show you how to register for those if you want to take them. And I'll show you a little bit more about how to change fate and fortune in those particular ones, and to give you some insight that is not in any of the books on any of these subjects. Again, as always, wishing you success and good fortune in all that you do, and I will talk to you soon.